Houston, integrity update on cabin config when convenient.
We are handing over in about 10 seconds to DSN. We'll meet you on the other side.
Copy, thanks.
And those communications referencing the DSN is the Deep Space Network. It's a powerful system for commanding, tracking, and monitoring the health and safety of spacecraft at many distant planetary locations. Also enables powerful science investigations that probe the nature of asteroids and the interiors of planets and moons, and will be utilized for communications with the crew aboard Orion. There's a handover ongoing over to that Deep Space Network, and once that handover is complete, we expect to regain communications with the crew again here shortly.
Okay, Christina, looks like we're back with you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, thanks for that. The cabin transit config has been completed all the way through except step 15. We will do a photo survey of the cabin for that. I guess either the next time we have it scheduled, or if there aren't any instances of it scheduled, we'll just do it during gray space, probably tomorrow.
And we are fine with that plan. Good work today.
Great, thank you. One thing I'll add is not sure how much teams on the ground are working on the PCD issue. I think we as a crew will come up with ways that we can work around only having 3 PCDs for all the various functionality. I will tell you one thing that will probably happen is you'll get more calls from me for stowage item locations, just because sometimes it's easier to ask you than borrow a PCD when everyone's hard at work.
Okay, copy that, and I guess that answers the question of whether that last Hail Mary was successful.
Yes, I never did let you know, probably because it wasn't successful, that we still had no activity on the PCD with that.
Okay, copy all. Thank you.
And Mark, looking around, I think our remaining items for you before we say good night are AGA readings. I have them when you're ready, as well as the time that I recorded them. It was right after exercise.
We are ready, and in fact, we have a little short list of odds and ends we wanted to sync up on with you too. So go ahead with the AGA readings. That was first on our list.
Excellent, thank you. The time of the reading was flight day 1, 7 hours, 40 minutes. CO2, 1.1. O2, 19.7. Temperature, 73.9. Pressure, 14.3.
Okay, copy all that.
And also, the accelerometer data transfer activity is complete. That's our last item. We're ready for yours.
And that was a single accelerometer, Christina?
Nope, it was the entire activity, so it was 2 accelerometers. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, copy that. Thank you. Okay, on our list of scattered items, we waved off that second AGA deploy earlier today and had a vague promise of we would find a time to do that later today. I'm we're assuming that did not happen as busy as it got, but just wanted to verify.
And Mark, I can let you know in a few minutes, but I believe that was heroically done by Ike over midday meal. We'll confirm in a moment.
Okay, thanks for that. Also, we'll plan to do the ARS state change to mode it to sleep tonight from the ground. And then we had a couple of photo-related things. Is there a PCD that these PAO daily photos went on to that we can be looking for?
That's going to be PCD1.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then, did you guys get to the Nat Geo scene list or shot list today? Actually, I think that's in your pre-sleep timeline, so maybe you haven't got there yet.
You know, Mark, so far the way we've been handling that is we are doing a lot of filming, and I think you're right. During pre-sleep, when we get into the rhythm, we can start marking them off. We'll look into that, but we can let you know if you need to hear those at night.
Okay, thanks for that, Christina.
Do you have any other items for us? We did think of one more for you.
I have just one more for you on that dual camera bracket install that Victor did. Can we have a go back and just go give that a little shake and tug and just confirm that it does feel like that bracket is well seated still?
Okay, he just confirmed it is well seated and those fasteners are only hand tight. Also, speaking of Ike, he did complete the secondary AGA activity.
All right. Great. Thank you. All right, we're ready for your last item.
All right, thank you. We actually ended up with two, turns out. First one is we were told that you all will be turning the temperature a bit warmer for nighttime. Wanted to make sure that's still going to happen. And second, we were wondering for the remaining water offload offs if you will be hard scheduling those tomorrow.
For the temperature, yes, we do intend to make that warmer tonight for you. And we need to follow up to understand whether we're going to be doing any water offloading anymore or not. So we don't have that answer right now. We'll follow up in the morning with that.
That's perfect, and thank you for the temperature. And Mark, with that, your integrity crew for now is ready to sign off.
Sorry, one sec, Christina. We're getting a couple of last-second thoughts here, too.
Integrity Huntsville. Just wanted to have one clarification for Ike. Were you able to get those saliva kits set up for tomorrow?
Hey, Huntsville. Yes, the dry saliva kit is deployed. It's on the bottom of the DUs in plain sight, and we will have those ready to go for tomorrow.
Copy that. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
In Integrity Houston, I think we've got our last two things here. The first is, Ike, when you deployed that secondary AGA, did you copy readings down? And if so, do you still have those? And if not, we can just get them tomorrow.
Yeah, I did write I took the crew note and put the readings in the crew note, and so I'm hoping that that's going to be sufficient for the remainder of the mission, and that we're not going to have to verbally confirm every activity every night. We understand these first couple of days it makes sense, but my expectation is you'll see it when you download the crew note for that. If you want it verbal, I'm happy to do that too. If you guys want AGAs always verbal, just let us know.
That's the right answer.
No, that's good enough, Victor. It takes a while for us to get those crew notes. It's a lot slower than it is on station, so we haven't seen that it's out there yet, but that'll be fine. The last thing was we need to power cycle both ACUs and then do a voice check 10 minutes after that. If you guys could put that in work when it's convenient. I'm sorry, my bad. We'll do that from the ground, and then we'll do a voice check 10 minutes after.
Copy. Confirm you're going to do that now.
Yes, we'll put that in work now.
And if you're just joining us, the Integrity crew aboard the Orion spacecraft did provide some communications with the ground on the status of the Orion spacecraft and how things are looking ahead of tomorrow. Everything continuing to go smoothly now. 1 day, 8 hours and 17 minutes into the historic first crewed test flight of the Orion spacecraft. Orion is now 193,819 miles away from the moon. We did hear a couple of communications about the status of the spacecraft and the go-forward plan for tomorrow, including some communications about the PCD. The PCD is a NASA personal computing device. We did hear that NASA astronaut Christina Koch's PCD was having some issues, and troubleshooting did take place. No luck getting that back on board working, but there are 3 other PCDs on board the Orion spacecraft that can be used for imagery and a variety of other tasks. Is not mission critical. We also heard communications about the temperature inside the Orion spacecraft being slightly adjusted as the crew prepares to head into their sleep period. And we also did hear some communications with NASA astronaut Victor Glover regarding the saliva biomarkers collection experiment and getting that prepared for utilization tomorrow. This is part of NASA's Human Research Program's Immune Biomarkers Experiment and involves swabbing the inside of astronauts' mouths and comparing the samples both pre- and post-flight as well as during flight to see how the body changes and adapts in the environment of space. Similar experiments are done on board the International Space Station, which has been continuously inhabited by humans for over 25 years. Data from both the International Space Station and the Orion crew during this crewed test flight will help inform future flights as part of the Artemis program. If you're just joining us, we are continuing to bring you live around-the-clock coverage of the Artemis II mission, humanity's first crewed mission to the moon in over 50 years. On the left-hand side of your screen, you're looking at a visualization of the Orion spacecraft as it makes its way to the moon, now 193,213 miles away from the moon. Earlier today, the Orion spacecraft completed the translunar injection burn, which placed it on a trajectory towards the moon. On the right-hand side of your screen is Mission Control Houston, namely the White Flight Control Room, or Artemis Mission Control, where the Orion and its subsystems are being controlled out of. This room is staffed 24/7 throughout the duration of the mission. Currently, we are being led by the flight director leading the Orbit 2 team. That is NASA Flight Director Paul Kanya. The crew on board Orion is preparing for their sleep period. But before they do that, they're stepping through a few more procedures with the ground here, helping to coordinate those.
Integrity Houston with a voice check on 1.
Houston Integrity, we have you loud and clear. How is?
You are loud and clear as well. One last thought we had, if PCD4 is connected to power, let's leave that disconnected overnight, and maybe it'll drain, and that'll give us something for one more try. With that, though, another great day today. Thank you, guys, and we will sign off for the night.
Many thanks to you and the team, and good night.
Good night. See you tomorrow.
And the Orion crew receiving some good nights and final words before heading to bed following a historic day, as the Orion spacecraft is now on its way to the moon. For the first time since 1972, a crewed spacecraft is heading to our nearest celestial neighbor, now 192,860 miles away from the moon. With the Orion crew now heading for their rest period, let's take a look at a little of what has happened over the past 1 day, 8 hours, and 32 minutes into the first crewed test flight of the Orion spacecraft. Following liftoff atop the Space Launch System rocket from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida at 6:35 p.m. Eastern on April 1st, NASA astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, as well as Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, separated from the Space Launch System, remaining inside Orion, still attached to the upper stage of the rocket, the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. They then orbited Earth twice to ensure the spacecraft systems were working as expected, while still close to home, and demonstrate new capabilities. Then the upper stage fired to send the crew to a higher elliptic orbit around Earth. After the burn for high Earth orbit, Orion was separated from the ICPS and used the stage for a piloting demonstration to test the spacecraft's handling qualities needed for operations in lunar orbit on Artemis IV. Orion's European-built service module then fired its engines during a move called the translunar injection burn. This burn lasted 5 minutes 50 seconds, sent the crew on a path toward the moon, the first time humans were sent on a path to the moon in over 50 years. At this time, the Artemis II crew inside the Orion spacecraft are now 55,872 miles from Earth and traveling at a speed of 5,722 miles per hour. It will take about 4 days total to reach the moon, and during this phase, the astronauts will fly to the far side of the moon and capture imagery and video of an area of the moon that has never before been seen by human eyes. The crew will fly around the far side of the moon in a figure 8 maneuver, where they are slated to set a record for the farthest anyone has ever traveled from Earth. The maximum distance that the Orion spacecraft is slated to fly away from the Earth during this mission is 252,021 statute miles, which beats the Apollo 13 record by 3,366 statute miles, and we are tracking the closest approach to the moon at 4,010 statute miles. Following this, the crew will continue their journey back home before splashing down off the coast of California, where they will be transported back to a U.S. Navy ship ahead of their return to land. And if you're just joining us this evening, the crew aboard the Orion spacecraft is on their way to the moon. They did just enter their sleep period, so we won't be hearing communications from them until they wake up after their sleep period. At this time, Orion is now 192,295 miles away from the moon, traveling at a velocity of 5,691 miles per hour.
The moon, to me, it's the thing that connects me together with all the other humans in my life. I remember being a little kid lying in bed at night and just looking out at the moon in whatever phase it was in, and I was thinking, man, my friends that live like 20 miles away, they can probably look out and see that same exact moon. And then when I was in the Navy and I would look out at the moon and I'd be halfway around the planet, and I would think, man, my brother can see that moon where he is, and he's halfway around the planet from where I am. And it's a connection of life on Earth. We can all look up and see that moon.
It represents
And as the crew inside the Orion spacecraft continue their journey to the moon following the translunar injection burn, that 5-minute, 50-second long burn, putting them on a course to the moon and back, let's learn a little bit more about that burn.
the Artemis II mission at its heart is a test mission of the Orion space capsule. This is going to be the first time that humans have ridden inside that capsule and that everything on board keeps us alive. The mission itself consists of a couple big orbits and very high orbits around Earth, and then doing a translunar injection burn to the moon. Our TLI burn, the burn that gets us going to the moon, is also our deorbit burn. And what that means is, as soon as we take that burn, we have bought off on basically the rest of the mission, save a couple options to do a U-turn burn that are in there as well. But the truth is, we are re-entering before and at the moment we do TLI. And recognizing that our team has to be ready for that full mission as soon as we buy in, that is a really interesting risk posture. And that's why I'm so glad we have spent so much time with our team, super integrated. It's been quite a journey getting to have the technical know-how on this vehicle as much as we have. And as an engineer, I've really loved that process.
And with that translunar injection burn complete, again, the crew of Orion is on their way to the moon. Speaking of the moon, let's hear more from the Artemis II crew talking about their destination during this test flight.
The moon, to me, it's the thing that connects me together with all the other humans in my life. I remember being a little kid lying in bed at night and just looking out at the moon in whatever phase it was in, and I was thinking, man, my friends that live like 20 miles away, they can probably look out and see that same exact moon. And then when I was in the Navy and I would look out at the moon, and I'd be halfway around the planet, and I would think, man, my brother can see that moon where he is, and he's halfway around the planet from where I am. And it's a connection of life on Earth. We can all look up and see that moon.
It represents history. It is a witness plate. Everything that's ever happened to the moon is still written on the moon. There's no processes of wind or change in the earth, geologic processes like we have here that change it. And something that's been telling and can read out the story of its own evolution, there's something beautiful about that.
I've also learned from my indigenous mentors that they refer to the moon as grandmother moon. So you've probably heard of Mother Earth. They use grandmother moon because grandmother moon is responsible for the water in their community. The grandmothers, sort of protect the water source, just like the moon moves the water around the planet, affects the tides. It's something that represents something different for each individual culture around the planet. And that's really neat because we all share that same moon in the night sky.
We all have seen the same side of the moon in different lighting conditions our whole lives. And so it seems very familiar to us, but it's also kind of unknown. When we get up close, some of the imagery that we'll get to describe and to share with people will be very unique. And that nature, both of those things being true about this one entity that we all know, just is really special.
It's just the epitome of a symbol of both something that's in each of our hearts, but that's also represents exploration and reaching.
This is Artemis Mission Control. We are 1 day, 8 hours, and 46 minutes into the first crewed flight test of the Orion spacecraft heading to the moon for the first time since 1972, a crewed spacecraft heading to our nearest celestial neighbor. Here in Mission Control Houston, a timer was just put up on the board here indicating one of the next major milestones that we're looking forward to, and that is lunar flyby. Targeting lunar flyby in 3 days, 15 minutes, and 40 seconds. You're looking at a live view inside the White Flight Control Room here at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. This Orbit 2 crew is being led by the flight director, Paul Kanya. As you can see on your screen, there are several other flight controller positions who are responsible for monitoring the Orion spacecraft and its systems, communicating with the crew, as well as some of the key science that we are going to be conducting during this mission, particularly when we fly behind the moon. During the lunar flyby, areas of the moon that have never before been seen by human eyes or photographed will be visible.
We're with you on one.
Hey, Mark, I know right before TLI we had the cabin leak warning, and I see an advisory now for cabin leak detect off, and just wondering if that's some troubleshooting y'all are doing. It just, I've never seen that advisory before.
Checking. Yeah, read that cabin leak indication that you got before TLI. We are using a workaround to try to keep that from re-enunciating as we change ARS states. And so we disabled the detection for about 3 minutes while we did the state changes, and it's been re-enabled again. So that's why you haven't seen that before.
Makes a lot of sense, Mark. I'm glad I asked, and thanks, and have a great night down there.
Thank you, sir. You too.
And those communications from the ground up to Reid Wiseman aboard the Orion spacecraft, discussing a workaround for a cabin leak indicator that was noticed before translunar injection burn. No concerns to the mission. All is well inside the spacecraft. The team was working a workaround just to turn that off to ensure that it wouldn't wake up the crew accidentally. Everything continuing to go smoothly here in Mission Control Houston and aboard the Orion spacecraft, now 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 52 seconds into today's flight, into this mission. You're looking at a visualization of the Orion spacecraft. As you can see from the analytics on your screen, Orion is currently traveling 5,623 miles per hour and is 57,556 miles away from the Earth, and now less than 200,000 miles away from the Moon. In this animation, you can also see the 4 solar array wings. You might hear these referred to as saws throughout the mission. These are critical for producing power for the Orion spacecraft throughout its 10-day flight. On the other end of the Orion spacecraft is the European Service Module, where the engines are located. This includes the Orbital Maneuvering System engine, or OMS engine, which was used during translunar injection. Translunar injection was a key burn that lasted 5 minutes and 50 seconds, placing Orion on a trajectory toward the Moon, and also serves as the deorbit burn for the Orion spacecraft as well. In addition to the orbital maneuvering system, Orion also, the European Service Module, has additional engines, including 8 auxiliary engines and 24 reaction control system thrusters. And if you're just joining us, while the crew is currently in their sleep period, we are continuing to bring you live coverage of the Orion spacecraft's journey to the moon following translunar injection. Orion and its crew of NASA astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, as well as Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, are now 190,685 miles away from the moon, traveling at a speed of 5,563 miles per hour. The crew launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on April 1st at 6:35 p.m. Eastern. Following launch, Wiseman, Glover, Cook, and Hansen separated from the Space Launch System and remained inside Orion, still attached to the upper stage of the rocket, known as the Interim Cryogenic Propulsion Stage, or ICPS. They then orbited the Earth twice to ensure the spacecraft systems were working as expected while still close to home and demonstrate new capabilities. Then the upper stage fired to send the crew to a higher elliptical orbit around Earth. After the burn for high Earth orbit, Orion separated from its ICPS and used the stage for a piloting demonstration to test the spacecraft's handling qualities, which will be needed for operations in lunar orbit on Artemis IV. NASA astronaut and pilot of the Orion spacecraft, Victor Glover, performed those proximity operations demonstrations. Then, Orion's European-built service module fired its engines during a move called the translunar injection burn to send the crew on a path toward the moon. This is the first time humans have been sent on a path to the moon in over 50 years. It does take about 4 days to reach the moon. At this time, we are counting down 3 days, 15 hours, and 21 minutes until the lunar flyby. This is when the Orion spacecraft will fly behind the moon. As part of this historic test flight, Orion and its crew are slated to travel further from the Earth than any human being has ever before. We are targeting a maximum distance from the Earth of 252,021 statute miles, which beats the current record held by the Apollo 13 crew, beats the record by 3,366 statute miles. At closest approach, Orion will be 4,010 statute miles away from the moon. Following lunar flyby, the crew will begin its journey back home. As a reminder, that translunar injection burn also serves as the deorbit burn. Orion will splash down in the Pacific Ocean, where NASA and a Department of War team will extract them from the Orion spacecraft and transport them back to a U.S. Navy ship ahead of their return to land. You're looking at a live view inside the White Flight Control Room here at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The team during this Orbit 2 shift is being led by NASA Flight Director Paul Kanya. This is Artemis Mission Control. We are 1 day, 9 hours, and 16 minutes into the first crewed flight test of the Orion spacecraft. This is Artemis Mission Control. The crew aboard the Orion spacecraft is currently in their sleep period. That crew includes NASA astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, as well as Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The crew had a busy and exciting day as they received the go for their translunar injection burn and completed that 5-minute and 50-second burn using the orbital maneuvering system engine, sending them on a course to the moon. Additionally, the crew stepped through procedures to set up and utilize the flywheel exercise device for the first time. Exercise is an essential requirement for crewed spaceflight missions. The Artemis crew exercises inside Orion using the flywheel exercise device. This device uses a flywheel, a series of pulleys, and a torque limiter encased in a frame the size of an extra-large shoebox, which functions like a rowing machine. The crew can perform exercises such as bicep curls, bent-over rows, and deadlifts for resistance training, as well as rowing for aerobic training. Each astronaut will spend approximately 30 minutes a day performing exercises. And during this time period, data collection and analysis of the flywheel and its utilization will be collected by the team on the ground. And this data, amongst other observations such as video of exercise sessions, will be used to further develop the flywheel in preparation for future Artemis missions. Additionally, the crew had their first public affairs event where they had the opportunity to speak to media outlets and share the wonders of human spaceflight with the world as they continue their journey to the moon, now 189,640 miles away from the moon. The Orion spacecraft traveling at 5,482 miles an hour, now 60,041 miles away from Earth.